Egypt is one of the world's largest producers of dates in the world, producing about 20 to 25% of the world's dates. They are one of the most dominant players in the global date market. This is because of Egypt's climate, large plantations, and long and historied relationship with the date and its cultivation. Areas of interest for the product of dates would include the Nile Delta and Oases like Siwa and Kharga. These locations and the country as a whole have the perfect conditions for growing dates. To understand why the climate of Egypt is perfect for the cultivation of dates, we need to know what conditions are perfect for growing dates. The date palm is a plant that likes to grow in dry and arid environments. Ideally, the temperature that the date likes to grow in is somewhere around the range of 32 degrees Celsius to 40 degrees Celsius during the growing season, with temperatures exceeding over 38 degrees Celsius in the summer. Additionally, dates like to grow in full sunlight. This is essential for the trees to produce high-quality and good-tasting yields. Additionally, dates grow well in dry humidity environments with minimal rainfall, generally less than 4 to 6 inches of rain annually. The reason for this is that excess moisture can hinder the growth of dates. This shows in the types of soil in which the date tree likes to grow, preferring well-drained sand, Y, and loamy soils, which are the best for the date tree because they don't like to be waterlogged. Because of this, the drier and more minimal the rainfall and temperature of the location they are being grown, the better. Because of this, dates like to grow near the equator far away from forests and rainforests. Because of this, regions like the Middle East, North Africa, parts of California and Arizona in the US, and of course, Egypt are famous for the production of dates. There is more than one kind of date in this world. Several varieties of dates are the most famous. The Barhi, Zaghloul, and Siwi are the most commonly sought-after varieties of dates. The Bari date is known for its unique qualities. It has a rich texture and flavor, is soft and moist, and has this interesting, rich, sweet taste with a sort of caramel-like flavor. They are usually enjoyed in a few ways, but generally, they are one of the most diverse varieties of dates. They are completely edible in most of their stages of ripeness, and each stage has its flavor profile. While unripe, the date is still green, and it has a bitter, tangy sort of flavor with a crisper edge to its texture. It's much less sweet and much more firm at this stage. As it matures, it's known as a Kalal Barhi. This is in the stage of semi-ripeness. This stage can be identified because the dates appear to be closer to yellow. At this stage, it's somewhat firm, but much softer than when it was unripe. Zaghloul dates are known for their firm textures and reddish color. They are larger, denser, and more fibrous than our other two date varieties. This gives it a chewier texture with a drier and denser mouthfeel. The Zaghloul is much less sweet and generally tastes richer than other varieties of date, and when they are dried, these flavors only get more intense. The good thing about these dates is that they can be stored for longer than other varieties, and they make for great snacks because their flavor is less sweet, which can appeal to those who want something with a richer flavor to it. Siwi dates are the most sought-after variety of dates. This is because of their flavor. They are known for having the sweetest and moistest flesh out of the 3 date varieties. This makes them an excellent choice for eating fresh, and it also makes them an excellent ingredient for cooking. They have a sweet and delicate flavor. They have a soft, melt-in-your-mouth texture when fresh. This makes them a great treat for people who like their dates to be softer and less juicy. Harvesting dates is a labor-intensive process. Farmers climb tall date palms, cutting the branches of the dates by hand, or using mechanical tools to reach the higher branches. If they make any mistakes, it's more than possible for them to seriously hurt themselves, or worse. Because of that, the job is both difficult and stressful, and one that requires the farmers to be highly careful and aware. After collecting the dates from the tree, they are then laid out on mats to dry in the sun, or they are processed into syrups or pastes. The date farming and processing industries are a crucial crop for the Egyptian economy. This is because Egypt gets a lot of money from the exportation of dates. This is due to the millions of tons of dates that are harvested annually. This industry produces a lot of money and provides a lot of jobs to laborers and farmers because of its labor-intensive harvesting. The harvest of dates in Egypt more than satisfies the local market, where the supply of dates is so high that they sell for much lower prices in Egypt than anywhere else. However, the majority of the dates are exported to foreign markets in the Middle East, Europe, and beyond. Dates aren't the only thing that the Egyptians love. Kahk is a traditional Egyptian sweet biscuit that is a popular treat to eat during festivals like Eid al-Fitr, which marks the end of Ramadan. The sweet history of Kahk dates back to ancient Egypt, where it was often associated with ceremonial events and offers to the gods. One of the main ways of serving Kahk is to use a filling of dates and sometimes nuts. These dates are often softened and combined with butter and ghee. This creates a rich, smooth filling, which gives the Kahk a dense texture and deep sweetness. Some variations of this filling also include species for those who like their Kahk with a side of nutmeg. Kahk is a symbol of celebration, which is why it's often prepared in large quantities. Think of it sort of like how turkey is enjoyed on Thanksgiving by Americans. Kahk is a treat that brings families together, often served with tea. It is common for it to be eaten at family gatherings. Furthermore, the ideas and sense of community are rich with Kahk. Its traditional status makes it an important part of Egyptian culture, but also the way it is made enforces this idea. Often made as a communal activity where many members of a family, often across generations, will get together and prepare the dough and fill the pastries. The best way to understand this would be similar to how dumplings and the culture surrounding them works, being that people like to make them as a family because each dumpling is delicate and takes a bit of time to make, and the large quantity needed means that by default, you need lots of people to make lots of dumplings. The same is true for Kahk. All Kahk isn't made equal. The fundamental principles underlying it may be the same: community, culture, celebration. However, there are more modern variations of Kahk which like to switch out the date filling for something more modern, often substituting date with ingredients like fruit or even chocolate. The production of Kahk is closely tied to the harvest of dates. This is because dates are the most common filling for Kahks. This gives Kahk a long and historied connection to the date. This strong tie between the two is often proven by the fact that the supply and demand for dates, Kahk and Kahk filling, rises significantly during the holidays. Additionally, the sale of Kahk helps to boost the agriculture and local production sectors of Egypt. Dates have been an integral part of Egyptian cuisine for centuries, and their role in Kahk showcases the deep connection between agriculture, food culture, and the general culture of a country. This is because dates and the traditional making of Kahk and the eating of dates are often indicative of more than just interest in that food. Rather, it's often a celebration of community, family values, and the rich heritage of dates within Egyptian culture. Archaeological evidence suggests that date cultivation in Egypt began in prehistoric times when fruit was a staple part of the Egyptian diet. Dates weren't just food, they were also drinks, often used in the production of local wines and alcohol. In addition to that, the date palm and its resistance to the extreme heat and dry nature of Egypt made it an ideal food source for native populations that would use the date in cultivation. In addition to that, the date was perfect for esturage because they were drought and salinity resistant. This fact made it the perfect crop for ancient natives in the region. Because of the date, communities were able to flourish in areas that they should have otherwise starved in due to drought. The date has also had symbolic and cultural significance because of its place in local myth and legend. According to ancient Egyptian myth, the date was revered as a symbol of fertility and vitality. The reason for this is that the date as fruit was highly adaptable to the difficult Egyptian climate, making it seem like it had symbolic powers of resilience and an inherited fertility which let it grow anywhere. Because the date is so perfect for the Egyptian climate, it is often associated with the Egyptian god of fertility Min, who was often depicted as having a fondness for the dam palm, a relative of the modern date palm. This association underscored the tree's role and importance in Akteian agriculture and its importance in sustaining the lifestyle of the Akteian people. The date holds further importance to the Egyptians because of its place in the mysteries of Osiris. Religious ceremonies are dedicated to the god of the afterlife. However, to understand why dates are important to this ceremony, we need to understand the context of the ceremonies and the stories behind them. According to legend, Osiris was the first king of Egypt who was murdered and betrayed by his brother Seth, who dismembered him and scattered his body across the lands. However, Osiris's wife, Iris, reassembled his body and resurrected him. Osiris later became the ruler of the afterlife, judging souls in the Hall of Ma'at. The story of Osiris is supposed to represent the eternal cycle of death and rebirth, like the cycle of the Nile flooding and the renewal of crops, and the cycle of seasons and the predictable shifts in temperature that the region experiences annually. The mysteries of Osiris were once secretive and sacred rituals that lasted several days, representing the death, mourning, and resurrection of Osiris. It is made up of the following rituals. At first, there are the public ceremonies where there are processions, reenactments of the myth, and offerings to Osiris. On the next day, there were sacred dramas. The priests played roles in the Osirian myth, performing the ritual where they mourn his death and celebrate his return. On the next day is the ceremony of the night vigils and lamentations. Worshippers would mourn Osiris and his symbolic passing into the time in the underworld. After that is the planting of the Osiris gardens. Small amounts of earth were shaped into his image and sown with barley, a crop associated with regeneration and fertility. And after that is the climax, also known as the celebration of resurrection, a ceremony where they gather and celebrate the symbolic return of Osiris into the world as he is reborn. It must be known that the mysteries of Osiris were only public religious celebrations during the public ceremonies. The rest of the ceremonies and celebrations were done in secret from the public. This was because they held deep spiritual significance, especially among the priesthood and the initiates. What we do know about Osiris is that he is the ruler of the Duat, the Egyptian afterlife, where he judged the souls of the dead. This ceremony of judging the dead was conducted using a simple test. He would extract the hearts of the dead souls and weigh them against a feather. The belief was that sin would weigh down the soul, and thus an impure soul would tip the scale towards the side of the heart, whereas the soul of someone innocent would not tip the scale and would thusly pass into the field of reeds, whereas someone with an impure heart would find their soul destroyed. In addition to this, the Egyptian priests and people who would be allowed into the private parts of the ritual underwent esoteric initiations. This was similar to the mystery cults in Greece and Rome. Another thing we need to know is that Osiris was identified as the first king of Egypt. Another thing we need to know is that Osiris was identified as the first king of Egypt. I already mentioned that. However, what I didn't mention is that the pharaohs and leaders of Egypt were treated as and held in high regard as gods and divine beings in and of themselves. Because of that, being the first king of Egypt meant a lot, because it showed that among even the gods, he was exceptionally important. This is further suggested as even in the tombs of other pharaohs his symbols were found. This implied that the Egyptians venerated him like a god of the pharaoh. This, in my opinion, makes sense, since as the ruler and arbiter of the Duat, he would have complete divine power, all within his kingdom. These ceremonies often use dates as representations of the god's lymphocytes. These were believed to be his vital energies. Offering dates to the god during these ceremonies is a symbolic action towards suggesting rejuvenation and ensuring the further fertility of the lands. This is no mistake. The date is so important. If their principal god's body is partly composed of dates, then it should be clear how much respect and importance the Egyptians have for the date. Beyond the date's importance to the myth and culture of the Egyptians, it's also a practical asset in ancient Egypt. The wood and fibers of the date palm are used across Egyptian culture, often used for tools, mats, and other everyday items. The tree and its robustness as a symbol and a practical tool is immense. It's as important to the Egyptians as the coconut is to Polynesian cultures. The comparison between the two is striking. Much like the coconut, it's highly important to its culture as a physical resource. It's an excellent food and ingredient. The tree and its many parts are used across the culture, and how the extracts from these goods have become important parts of the economy. That is, in addition to how both of these products are both symbolically and spiritually highly important to their respective cultures. In addition to that, the date within the context of Egyptian culture has importance to cultures outside of Egypt. The reason for tie is that the cultural exchange between Egypt and cultures like the Greeks and Roman empires meant that ideas often spread around. This includes some of the esoteric traditions of Egyptian culture and religious practice being adapted, but we also see the influence of Egyptian myth and beliefs surround the date being absorbed into other cultures, along with other customs. This can be seen with things like the Greek Eleusinian mysteries and Dionysian cults, where fruit and grains, including the date, were seen as divine sustenance and vitality. In addition to this, we saw the date becoming a common integration into the Roman feasts and rituals. Over time, dates grew to have associations with gods like Ceres and Bacchus, and they even turned into symbols of power and divine favor within Rome, which resulted in dates becoming a part of early Christian iconography. More than just the symbolic meaning of dates, we can also see that dates became an important part of the Roman diet. Dulcia domestica. Those words would have brought the typical Roman of the 1st century CE to salivate. You see, dates from Egypt were a common snack in ancient Rome, often being sold outside of the collisions and other such places. They were often eaten by people spectating gladiatorial matches or other public events. For those curious about remaking the snack for yourself, the recipe goes as follows. According to Apicius, the famous Roman cookbook from the 1st century, the recipe involved stuffing the dates with ground nuts, often almonds or walnuts. Although in the modern age, you can probably put any nuts you feel like adding, along with crushed nuts. They were to add cracked pepper, sometimes pine nuts. Then they would add pine nuts. Then they would soak or drizzle in honey, and then serve. For those with a taste for more complex flavors, some vendors often offered to include or pair the snack with wine and liquamen, an ancient fish sauce. The humble date is far more than just a sweet, energy-rich fruit. It is a symbol of resilience, culture, and deep-rooted tradition in Egypt and beyond. For thousands of years, the date palm has sustained Egyptian civilization, providing nourishment, economic stability, and even spiritual significance. Its ability to thrive in Egypt's arid climate has made it an invaluable crop, one that continues to shape the country's agriculture, trade, and culinary heritage. From the treacherous labor of harvesting dates high in the palm trees to the careful selection and processing of these fruits, the industry remains a cornerstone of Egypt's economy. The millions of dates produced annually not only satisfy local demand, but also travel across the globe, showcasing Egypt's agricultural excellence to the world. The varieties of dates, each with its own distinct texture and flavor profile, highlight the country's mastery of cultivation and tradition. Beyond economic importance, dates hold a deep cultural and spiritual meaning. They are woven into Egypt's history, from the myths of Osiris to the sacred rituals that honored fertility, life, and renewal. The ancient Egyptians saw the date palm as a sacred tree. its fruit representing vitality and eternal sustenance. This reverence for the date has persisted across centuries, influencing neighboring cultures like the Greeks and Romans, and continuing to be a fundamental part of Egyptian society today. One of the most enduring ways dates remain part of Egyptian culture is through traditional foods like kahk. This beloved biscuit, often enjoyed during celebrations such as Eid, connects generations of Egyptians through shared history, family gatherings, and culinary tradition. The use of dates as a filling in kahk reinforces the fruit's role as both a staple and a symbol of joy, community, and festivity. The journey of the date, from its ancient mythological significance to its modern-day economic and cultural importance, demonstrates its timeless relevance. Whether eaten fresh, dried, or incorporated into beloved sweets, dates are more than just food. They are a testament to Egypt's enduring traditions, a bridge between past and present, and a reminder of the rich heritage that continues to shape the nation.